And then not to mention that, they also recommended the wallet flush, 60K service. If you've ever been in the dealership setting, you know what this is. You get a third-party company, whether it's Justice Brothers or BG. Welcome back, you guys, for another automotive discussion video. Today we're going to be talking about this specific water pump and my customer, and the scam per se, that is going on at the Quick Lube, specifically at the dealerships. Alright guys, thanks for stopping by for another discussion type video. I'm going to try to get one of these out every single week. If you're new to the channel, welcome. And I'll preface this by saying I am now an independent automotive technician. I went out on my own about 2.5 years ago. And for about 10 years, 8 to 10 years, I was a technician at the Toyota dealership. So to start this conversation, we have to go way back to when I was in tech school. When I went through tech school back in 2013, it seemed like everyone wanted to get a job at a Quick Lube because it seemed like you had a quick in at the dealership, you know, if you decided to go that route. Some people got apprenticeships at small independent auto shops, but it seemed like the vast majority of people ended up working for a Quick Lube inside of a dealership. For me personally, it ended up being Toyota. Now I feel like I was kind of in a transitional period in the dealerships at that time, because when I started in the dealership in the Quick Lube, it seemed like 99.9% of everybody else that was a part of the Quick Lube was in school to be an automotive technician, and we worked really hard because we wanted to get a job. Now that job sucked. It was terrible. We had the pit, so you didn't have a full-size lift. You were rotating tires down on your knees, and all you did was mind-numbing oil changes all day. Now because we were in tech school, sometimes you get, you know, a brake concern or something like that, and sometimes the advisors didn't want to spend the time to take it over to the main shop, so they would give it to one of us that was in school. Now this transitional period that I witnessed seemed to happen around 2015, 2016, probably 2015, because I was only in the Quick Lube for 2 years, and then I started doing C-Tech stuff once I graduated. But what happened was, it seemed like then there was a split, and it was like 50% of us kind of knew our way around vehicles and wanted a job and were in school to be a mechanic, and then the other 50% were just kind of, you know, not to be rude, but like low life, no motivation, no goals type of people. And obviously it's a very entry-level job. You're changing oil for about $10 an hour. So then my time at the dealership, as I grew, I went through, you know, was a C-Tech, then I was an apprentice, then I finally got a position in the main shop being a service tech. And what I saw in those 8 to 10 years at the dealership was this shift, and all of a sudden almost 100% of the Quick Lube was just people who had no interest in cars and were very questionable at times and seemed to have no motivation, and they just did not care, which is a huge problem we can bring up in another video. I saw engines blow up, engines get triple filled with oil, all sorts of these kind of things. But what happens is, and what I remember from being in the Quick Lube, is that you would get an inspection form, and then we loved that, you know, those of us who were in school, because it's like, you know, is there a problem with a brake? Is there a leak? Is there, you know, something other than just changing oil? And we'd fill out these inspection forms. Problem being, then you get all these people who literally just pencil whip the entire inspection, and they really don't know what they're looking at. I remember, as one example, when I was at the dealership, one of the Quick Lube technicians on a Subaru that came in pulled the transmission drain plug instead of the oil drain plug, and then he tried to use the flush machine to fill it back up, and he put so much ATF in there that it was coming out of the vents on the top of the transmission. It was a whole mess. Anyway, so what does that have to do with my customer and what we're talking about today? So I know I had it in a video. I had a customer that I went online and I got an Aisin water pump, which is a Toyota product. Aisin makes parts for Toyota, and I went online and we made a short about the fact that Aisin had these overstocked Toyota parts, it seemed, and then they like ground off where it said Toyota, so it just said Aisin. Moral of the story is we put a quality water pump on her vehicle. So anyway, if you remember this video, that was last summer, and my customer bought this 2017, I believe it is. I'll put this down. She bought this 2017 RAV4, and she bought it from the dealership that I used to work at. And there's one sales lady there that I absolutely love, and she gets me work, I get her sales, stuff like that. I always recommend her. She was like my work grandma. And if you know anything about car salesmen, it's hard to find someone that's not all slimy. So Anyway, she gets this car from her, she brings it to me for a pre-buy inspection. And I was like, okay, yeah, it needs this, this, and this, but the main concern was the water pump was leaking. And I just told her, I said, see if they'll sell it to you as is, I'll put a Toyota water pump in it for you, but see if they will sell it to you and discount the price because the water pump is actively leaking. And they agreed to do that. She got a good deal on it, she's loved the vehicle. Well, when she bought it, she got one free oil change at Toyota, or a couple, I can't remember. So she recently went in, and granted, this all happened less than a year ago. This was like last summer, and right now it's March. And she went in, and she called me, and she was coming with her daughter to drop off a vehicle, and she was all flustered. She's like, I was just at the dealership for this free oil change, and they recommended like $4,000 worth of work. Like, do I? And I said, just bring the sheet with you and we'll look at it, right? Well, for one, they recommended a water pump, which I just put on. And this is ridiculous because she went in for her free oil change, which was in the quick lube, and then they said the water pump was leaking, right? So maybe there were some crusties on there, you know, from when I replaced the water pump. But if you look at this thing, which we did, and the water pump's clearly brand new and it's not leaking at all. So I was like, why are these incompetent people recommending services? And then not to mention that, they also recommended the wallet flush, 60K service. If you've ever been in the dealership setting, you know what this is. You get a third-party company, whether it's Justice Brothers or BG, which are good fluids to be fair, but they have their own maintenance schedule. So if Toyota says you need to change your transmission fluid at 85,000 miles, you know, whatever it is for that specific vehicle, BG might say, no, we're doing it every 60,000. So then the dealership, the advisors, have these sheets that show these services, and sure enough, a huge portion of her bill, like over $1,000, was recommended an emission service, recommended a battery clean, a transmission fluid exchange, all-wheel drive service, brake fluid exchange, power steering fluid exchange. They threw the book at her. They were like, you should do all these fluids, and she's like, do I need that? And so I just looked over your vehicle not very long ago, less than a year ago, and the fluids were in good condition. I said, you know, maintenance items, it's never a bad idea. Like, it's obviously something you need to do. You go into these quick lubes and service centers at the dealership, and their job is to sell you these services to make money. And if there's no record of her ever getting these services done, you know, in the history of this vehicle, they're going to pitch it and see if they can sell it. Is it going to hurt her car? No. But does she need to spend $1,000 doing all these things? Absolutely not. But what really bothered me was the whole water pump situation. Again, like I said, you know, this is in the quick lube, so even if they are in school to be an automotive tech, they're not gonna, you know, you're not gonna be the most savvy when you're still in school. But you can clearly see that this water pump is brand new and that I just put it on there, you know, less than 5,000 miles ago, and it's not leaking. There's no active leak on the water pump. Again, maybe there's a crusty dribbled somewhere that I didn't clean up on the front of the engine when I put the water pump on, but you just really got to be aware of this. If you're going to a dealership to get oil changes, do not be crazy alarmed when they recommend services and things to be done for you. Sometimes, and some people, they mean well and they know what they're talking about, but the vast majority of them are not automotive technicians. And I don't know where that break in the kind of industry happened, where it's like these people aren't in school to be techs anymore. They're just, you know, not very motivated, entry-level job. But what I'm trying to say is, you know, if you were to talk to her, which, you know, bless her heart, but she doesn't know much about cars. She probably forgot that we even put the water pump on it. But it's like, all you're doing is scaring people. And then when you give people a bill, it's always comical to me. If somebody comes in with an older, let's say it's a 90s Civic, and I mark down absolutely everything that's wrong with that car, every oil leak, every brake squeak, you're gonna scare them away. You know, you got a $2,000 car, they're not, now you just scared them away. You got to prioritize some of these things. Maybe if she would have went in and they recommended just the tranny flush, maybe she would have done it. I'm not sure. But it's like, when you put all of these things in there like that, you can't scare people like that. You have to prioritize fixes, and just be careful, because sometimes people don't know what they're talking about. All right, guys, so I just thought this was kind of a good discussion video to bring up. Again, we just put the water pump on this customer's vehicle. She does not need a water pump, and it's just something to be aware of. If you're going into a service center and you're getting your vehicle serviced in the quick lube, just do your due diligence, have somebody qualified check it out, and don't freak out when you see a huge list of recommendations, because remember, most of the time the advisors are there on commission and they got to make money. They're trying to eat too, so they're going to recommend those things, and sometimes, more often than not, they're not always necessary. If you guys enjoyed this discussion video, drop me a comment down below, like and subscribe if you're not already, and as always, we'll see you next time.